Hello and welcome once again. Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires we call the Internet is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Oh, I'm dropping things. I can do whatever I want. I'm not wearing pants.
Oh, God.
I can run over here. I can do whatever I want in the house. I'm up on the first floor. I'm not in the catacombs because
really?
Everybody in the house is gone.
Where are they at?
Home. Holly's out with her friends, and my wife went to go see Journey at the XL Energy Center.
Ooh.
Yeah. She actually asked me to go, and I thought about it. Now we had to postpone the podcast from Monday to Tuesday, but I was thinking, well, I don't really care to see this version of Journey. So
I don't care to see any version of Journey.
I'd like the Steve Perry version. I mean, there's a few songs that I like, and most of the time I try to go off the William Shatner method that we've talked about, where you just say yes to things you wouldn't normally do, because I know if I went there, I'd probably have fun. On the other thing, though, it is it's my wife's with her friends, and they're all fairly attractive women, and I was like, you know what, this needs to be a girls' night out. I don't care what you say. As soon as the guy's in the room, the conversation will change. So she just needs this to go out. So I'm at home, pants-free, and podcasting away. How about you, Cory? How are you doing?
I'm working and working and working and working and working.
I got to say...
By the way, last night I was in at work. What a shock. And I was called in because one of the overnight staff had quit. So I emailed them when I got up. I'm at my full-time job, and I emailed them and say, hey, I know that there's an open shift tonight because somebody quit last night. And I got a correction back. Cory, 2 people quit last night.
See, you're out of the loop.
But here's the thing. I started doing some math,
and
I figure if I put half my check away for the next 3-4 months, I'll have enough money to do something big and stupid.
Woohoo!
So I'm looking to do something really big and stupid. That would
be great, because coming up is the Fall Comic-Con, the one-day wonder. October 8th, 2016, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Minnesota State Education Building. Advance tickets on sale now at www.mcbacomiccons.com. And I've talked about it before. There's over 100 creators. There's 33,000 square feet of awe-inspiring comic book wonderment. I'm looking forward, of course, to the Nick's Post Scholarship silent auction. And I'll say it here because... I like to lay out things. I've got the remainder of the comic stock that Nick used to take to different comic shows. It was donated to the con about a year ago, maybe, and it's made 2 appearances at the charity booth. I've sold some of it off, some of the bigger books off on eBay, and we're getting down to the nitty-gritty stuff. And last year, for the scholarship fund, I actually put together a box, and it was, a regular comic box. They hold anywhere from 100 to 200 comics if you really stuff it full of these variants. And I'm going to go through the remainder of these boxes and maybe make another one of those things. Started out at $50, but you figure even at $1 a piece, that baby's going to have some decent stuff inside. So you get there early, and you can sign up for stuff like that. And, of course, first 400 attendees will have grab bags. And do I hear right? We're going to live stream podcast the entire con?
Well, let's hope
from
so.
From 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.?
Because, boy, do I have a story for this episode.
See, that's why I wanted to segue into that, because you just came off BlizzardCon. I mean, I practiced dropping, because, we like to drop the podcast a week after we do it. But it'll be almost 2 weeks, and you were at Blizzard World.
Yeah. Wow. Well, first off, I had none of my assistants to help. You were only there for, about You were only on camera for, I think, 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, I got there, and my boss gave me okey dokey to take an hour vacation, and so I could actually show up at the con, wander around a bit, and then we got to talk comic books, which was kind of cool. So if you want to see what I bought, go to that there podcast, because I'm not going to reiterate it here.
Butch didn't show.
Nope, not sure where he was.
Lyndon didn't show.
Never sure where he is.
Sharon didn't show.
Was she feeling bad?
No, she had to work.
Oh.
And so it was just me. And there were a lot of problems with this show, Joe.
Well, I can tell you from what I saw, I thought it was kind of cool. When I got to work, I tried to sign in because you were live podcasting, so I couldn't get YouTube's to work in the way that I could actually like send you questions and stuff because it keeps confusing. Apparently I have 2 emails accounts, and whenever I sign in on my phone, it depends on which one logs in first. But from what I saw, it was actually kind of fun, and I think, in my opinion, you actually were doing pretty well, considering you had almost nobody to play off of.
Oh, I had no one to play off of. Now, when I got there, first off, I drove around the parking lot there for about 10 minutes because my phone would say, turn here, turn here, turn here, turn here, until finally I realized, okay, it's a high school in a strip mall with poor signage for the high school. And then I parked, and it was like, okay, I think this is it. And I went to one door, and it said to go the other door, and I went to the other door, and it was locked, and there were no signs. I got there about 9:30. There were no signs. And I look in, and there's nothing, and I'm going back to the car, and this guy opens the door and says, "You here for the Comic-Con?" I go, "Yeah, I'm setting up at the con." "Oh, yeah, it's right here. Come on in." Now, later, they did have a sign. Somebody took 2 pieces of paper and wrote in Sharpie, "Blizzard World Comic-Con," and taped it to the door. Now, did you see the sign that they had taped on the door, Joe?
Well, see, I had one advantage over you because you know my beautiful microphone that I so lovingly talk into.
Yes.
I bought it at the Radio Shack in that strip mall, so I know exactly where it was. Although, when I went up there, there was I went to what I thought the school door was, and it said, "Enter con at gym." Okay. Well, unfortunately, there wasn't anything that said gym, but I just happened to get there as somebody was walking out. So.
And then I get in. Yeah, they've put the artists. It's a high school gym, not a big one, just a high school gym. And they had the artists at kind of the lunch tables in the middle. And then they had the dealers around the outside. And I said, "Where's my space?" And first they tried to put me at the table. So no, I paid for a table space. And I'm going to need, electricity and this and that. And they said, "Oh, okay, over here. Nobody's over here." And I went over there, and it was one of the guys who sets up and sells toys at the MCBA cons, and he was already bitching because they had tried to move 2 people into space he had bought, and he was just mad.
Yeah, I think didn't he leave?
We'll get to that.
Yeah, because I ran into him, but yeah, we'll talk as we get closer to that because I did see him.
So I get set up. I get my equipment set up. The Wi-Fi kind of works okay, but there was a lot of problem with dropping and all that. And because it was just me, I thought, I'll get people as they come by to talk comics. I'll get some of the artists to come by. First off, the artists, pretty much all but one, said I can't leave my table. And then, trying to get people who came by, well, you saw how well that went. There weren't a lot of people there. So it was just me talking, and after 6 hours, I ran out of stuff to say.
Well, yeah, and I talked to Cory after the con, and I said, when you get in a situation like that, you should treat it like you do your podcast, but to not have anything pre-prepared to talk with, it's got to be crazy.
I had some stuff.
And you're way ahead of me than I would have been.
Here's some things to talk about when it's slow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, after 2 hours, I talked about all the stuff that was there when it was slow.
And now you remember when Cory used to scold me at the mega, how many hours was that at SpringCon?
8 hours a day, so 16 hours.
When Cory would say, you just don't walk away and let it go. I said, well, the difference being there, you could watch people walk by. And sometimes you just sit back and enjoy the crowd. But there wasn't a crowd.
Well, and then I had lunch, I think around 1:30. And I came back and I thought, okay, maybe things have picked up. And it hadn't picked up. So I walked around, and 2 of the dealers were packing up.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you know which ones?
No, I didn't ask.
Oh, okay.
But, they're taking stuff out to their cars. And at 3 o'clock, I said, I can't talk anymore. I have talked and talked and talked and talked and talked. I mean, I got to the point where I'm talking about Carl Burgos, the creator of the original Human Torch, walking on the Myron Fast magazines in the 70s.
Whoa. I'm getting a real Dennis Miller vibe from you all of a sudden.
Yeah. That's how obscure I was getting. And I just said, you know what? I'm done. There's nothing more to talk about. There's nobody here. And I took my chairs and hung them up. And, the 2 dealers in the corner, one of them was already gone.
Yeah.
And another person was taking their comic boxes out. Now, from what I hear, the Blizzard World in February was much better attended. This one, because I think the location was just so bad, nobody knew about it.
It was in the same location.
Really?
Yeah. But, see, this is a problem you have when you try to run shows during the summer. This is why the MCBA never ran a summer con. It was arguably one of the nicest days we have had in the Twin Cities in forever. I mean, it actually lasted, I think, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Today, we're back to the ungodly humidity. There's going to be storms overnight. So you run into that problem when you post. You also run into that during the winter. That's why we, MCBA, never put on winter shows. One of the biggest shows Pat and I used to always go to was up in Duluth. The very last one, I remember talking with Pat. And I think I got up in the morning. We'd loaded our truck the night before. I started up my truck, and I noticed a lot of liquid flowing out of it.
Oh, that's not good.
Never good. And so I went back, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, there's literally water pouring out of it. Now, my wife was upset because at the time there was a blizzard going on between us and Duluth. And I'm thinking, well, they said the roads are in fair shape. As long as I go slow, maybe use the 4-wheel, I should be able to make it. Well, I called Pat, and I think it had to have been maybe 6 a.m., and I said, you know what? The truck is effed. The blizzard's bad. We're not going. And that was, I think, the last time we actually did a con in Duluth. It might have been the last time they had one. So you run those problems. Winter, the bad weather. Summer, you get some nice weather. Who the hell wants to go inside? Ma, will you take me to a Comic-Con? No, but let's go to the beach or Valley Fair or out somewhere in the backyard.
And another thing that the person running it did, he didn't announce guests till on Facebook like a couple days before.
He might not have known. I can imagine it's hard to get people to come.
No, because he told me that he was pretty much sold out about 3-4 weeks ago. So I don't know if it was organizational issues or what, but there wasn't much for me to play off of, and I got really burned out just talking. Now at LionCon, August 27th. At the St. Cloud River's Edge Convention Center at 10 4th Avenue, St. Cloud, Minnesota, 56301.
You do that really well.
that's not going to be a problem because I've got Vaz Little Crow who's going to be coming up and talking with me. Stephanie Caffell's going to be there. Some of the crew will be there. Joe's going to blow me off, maybe.
Hey, if you insist on doing shit on Saturday, I can't go because I can't get off.
I'm not even going to make a joke there. But Dangerous Dan Moore's going to be there. Dangerous Dan Moore's a guest of honor. And I tried a new opening for the show, Joe.
Ooh.
Tried a new opening for the show that has already been called embarrassing.
Probably fell flat.
Shall I do it for you?
Oh, why not? That is embarrassing.
Me.
Yeah, no, definitely don't use that one.
My name is Cory Strode, and I'm a certified geek and a bona fide nerd, and you can't teach that. Bada boom, best dressed man in the room. How you doing?
Yeah, I think I'd have turned you off by now. Actually, that's not bad, but...
I've been watching wrestling. Enzo and Cass, the most entertaining thing on TV.
Cool.
Most entertaining thing on TV. But no, I don't think it was a good convention for the podcast. I don't know how artists did. I know that dealers, the few dealers I got to talk to were not pleased. But then again, dealers are never pleased. No. They're never happy. But I don't know. I didn't see a lot of people there. The cosplayers all seemed to stay over by the other side where the camera was. They weren't circulating a lot. I think for a small convention like this, you have to do more than just put it up on your Facebook page and piggyback off of the MCBA's list. Because the MCBA sent out an announcement like either the day before or the day of.
That was me, by the way.
Oh. And, LionCon seems to be doing more. They're getting on the local radio show. They're doing stuff like that. But people have so many options of stuff to do.
That sounds like that con I went to up in, I can't remember, where it was just dealers. There was no guests. It was just a room in a hotel, and it was ringed with dealers. And I kind of got that same vibe here, although there did seem to be more... I would know... I couldn't tell the difference between the artists and the crafts makers.
Yeah.
Which, again, that's their problem. But, I would just went mostly just to see you. And I burned a week. I burned an hour of vacation just to geek. And, I love walking through. We got some good talking out of the small crap that I bought.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, in turn, it was fun to be able to, at work, tune in and actually be able to watch what was going on. There were times where I had to go deeper into the airport and I couldn't get the signal. Now, when I finally came out of the basement, I'm like, oh, let's see what's Cory's going on. And it starts, well, now's the final thing of the con and blah, blah, blah. And I go, oh, cool. And I start sending questions. And then I realize, oh, this is over like an hour and a half old. So you got a bunch of...
Yeah, by then it's like, I am sick of listening to me talk.
You probably got a bunch of questions like, well, Joe's a little slow on the uptake here, but... well. So if anything, just tune in for my part.
Yeah, maybe I'll just edit together kind of a best of, which will be the 20 minutes you and I talked.
That was fun. And you even gave me some trivia I didn't know of.
I could give people trivia of all kinds that they don't know.
Yeah, but this was something that I bought.
Now
Fantastic Four 200. Remember what that was?
Oh, yes.
Yep. Don't tell them here. They have to go to the podcast.
No, I'll tell them here because I've looked and there's only 7 people who've watched that. Fantastic Four number 200, I've talked about it on the solo podcast, was the last piece of art Jack Kirby did for Marvel. He did a cover of Reed Richards fighting Dr. Doom, and that was the last thing he did for Marvel. Now, somebody who's not doing their last thing is Bo Smith.
Bo Smith.
The last real man in comics.
That is true.
And he's got a series out that has been turned into a TV show.
Yeah.
And we were sent kind of a preview copy of the graphic novel that's coming out that reprints the first 6 issues of the IDW series.
Now, Wynonna Earp has a history. Basically, she was created by Bo Smith, and he attempted to recast the old-time westerns in a 90s style. The title character is the great-great-granddaughter of legendary lawman Wyatt Earp, and by way of an illicit affair with a Hollywood starlet. Growing up, Wynonna took on the mission of her illustrious predecessor, eventually becoming members of the U.S. Marshals Special Ops Division. Part barbed wire, part Ringo Kid. She's a cowboy super cop. And, of course, rather than waste time chasing teenage hubcaps thieves, she goes against monster cartels of drug runners, pushing hemo drugs, going after mutant vampires. It started out in a series from Image, 5 issues, and then it went to IDW. The first one was Home on the Strange back from 2003, Yeti Wars 2010, and then the current one coincides with the TV show, which is airing on Sci-Fi. The first 13 series, I don't know if they're done with or not.
Yes, the first season's done.
But they did announce at San Diego Comic-Con there will be a second series. Consequently, when Cory told me that we are going to be reviewing the book, I was like, oh, this is so cool because I already have the homework done. This is one of those that I just buy the IDW comic book because I like Bo. I like what he writes, and I love me my photo covers, and IDW's big on, at least when it's a media tie-in, as this one is at the moment, I was able to pick out some really cool photo covers. And then, of course, when the San Diego Comic-Con come around, there was one with all the cast members, and every single one signed it, and I'm like, I must have! But it was like $250 and must have, and I didn't have the $250. But I'm eyeballing it. Oh, I'm eyeballing it. So this is the current series from IDW.
All right. Well, what did you think of it?
I enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I only got issue 5, which sucks because issue 5 stopped in a cliffhanger, and I know I could have gone and looked at the preview book, but I was like just having too much fun going through the comic. You know, she's a son of a bitch. That's all you can say about her, and I'd really like to know. I could not find my previous issues. I don't know how much has changed to make her more in tune with the TV show. I would imagine not much. She's now drawn more like the TV character. Okay.
Because in her first appearance, it was very much incredibly busty blonde.
Well, it was the Image years.
Blah, blah,
so, yeah, a lot of cross-hatching and things like that. The storylines are a lot of fun. They kind of read almost like they might be a TV script. It's pretty easy to follow. I was confused at the beginning over 2 characters. There's a gentleman running around by the name of John Henry, very mysterious. And then, of course, the chief bad guy, Mars Del Rey. And that lasted all until they took care of Mars. But the problem continues, and like I said, I get up to issue 5, and there's a to be continued. And I'm like, oh. But this is a series I've enjoyed. It's pretty good paced. And like I said, I just love the photo covers. And they do have a lot of different options because, as you know, IDW is want to do. They love their variant covers. So you can choose that, the regular drawn cover. They even toss in, like, when they had the Valentine covers with the first issue. So I imagine next month I'll have issue 6, and then I can read it. Oops.
I always liked Bo Smith's work, and I find it weird that he doesn't get a lot of it. Bo Smith writes a certain kind of comic. He writes tough guy comics.
Yeah.
His men are manly men. His women are kick-ass women. The bad guys are unrepentant bastards. He did stuff over at Eclipse then I think the thing he's best known for is his run on Guy Gardner.
Guy Gardner Warrior. It's when he turned Guy into an Indiana Jones kind of hero, and he kind of switched around. I think the most fun he did was he had Guy Gardner open a bar. As a matter of fact, I read that issue earlier because, we'll talk about that when we get to eBay stuff. I ran across the grand opening where you open the gatefold cover, and there was a contest to name every single hero there. And, of course, like every good bar opening, when Lobo shows up, there has to be a bar fight. It's just one of those I'm always going to keep. But, yeah, that series at DC, and even at IDW he did some stuff. Cobb Off the Leash.
Cobb was really good.
He did, was it something in the 24 mythology?
Yeah, he did.
24
he did
Cold Warriors, yeah.
Yeah, he did a 24 story. This one, it reads like an old school comic book. It really does. It reads like something from the 70s or 80s without a lot of the, superfluous purple prose. But the main artist on the book, Laura Innes, her style does not fit the story, to my mind. It's too cartoony. It's too light. There was one issue in the middle, issue 3, that was drawn by Chris Evenhuis, Evenhuis,
Yep.
And that it was almost like a Paul Smith art. If you remember Paul Smith from X-Men and all that. His stuff reminded me a lot of Paul Smith. It was still uncomplicated and not with a lot of overdone shadowing and cross-hatching and etc. But it wasn't as cartoony. It felt a little more realistic. And as I was reading along, I got to that issue. It's like, ooh, I really like this. But then Laura Innes came back. And I'm not saying Laura Innes is a bad artist. I'm saying her style does not fit the book. I did watch the TV series. The TV series was one that I thought was okay. It wasn't great. It's not like, oh my gosh, I have to watch the next episode. It took me quite a while to get through it because it was, is there something else I want to watch? Oh yeah, I'll watch something else. But, it was entertaining enough for what it was. The comic is much better. It's not as, I'm trying to think, it's not as soap opera-y. The TV show feels like a lot of dramas now. It feels like there has to be, everybody has their own subplot and blah, blah, blah. But the comic was 1 and 2 issue stories. They, had a continuing thread, but the story would have an ending.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really enjoyable trade paperback. I don't know how much longer the show's... Hello?
Oh, sorry. One of them dumb ads is automatically loading.
I don't know how long it's going to go because when you go to IDW's website, they call it a mini-series, even though they're up to issue 8.
Yeah, I think that was in the last previews.
So I really enjoyed it. And, Joe, buy, borrow, or ignore?
I am buying it as a comic series. If you have not or cannot pick it up, I would definitely pick this one up, especially if you're a fan of, like Cory said, old school comics or good westerns with a sci-fi twist.
For me, it's a buy, except look through it before you buy it because it may be that the cartoony art does not work for you at all. So just make sure that you like the art enough to buy it. It's a great story with okay art. And that's our review. One of the other things I wanted to talk about, because the Blizzard World, to me, was kind of a flea market type convention. I didn't see hardly any high-end books at all. Nobody was bringing in their high-end Silver Age. It was a lot of guys dumping their con stock at $1 a book.
I think Murdo had his normal higher bronze up there. He did a couple deals.
I didn't see those.
Yeah, no, he had a back stock kind of against the wall. And but he always has things that he's blowing out. And I think I picked up, he was doing like $1 a piece, 6 for $5 type of deal. That's where I picked up those what ifs that we looked at, some of the later ones.
But you've done a lot more of those conventions than I've gone to. I don't go to a lot of those.
Do you have a Booster Gold #1?
No, but I have the showcase that collects the entire series.
Well, Booster Gold #1 is going nuts because
of a movie?
No, because it's the first appearance of Booster Gold. Unlike most characters, you're talking it's like a $50 comic. #2 is like a couple bucks. So some of those, what would you call that? It came out in '86. Is that?
So I haven't gone to a lot of the flea market shows. You probably set up at a bunch of them.
Yes.
So what is it like as a dealer? Because to me, this one, maybe I'm spoiled by the MCBA shows, but it just felt very sparsely attended.
Well, see, I would have planned it like that. I mean, when you go to something like the MCBA shows, now again, this is back in the 80s and 90s. Those, you bring everything. You bring your big stock, you bring your little stock, you try to squeeze as much as you can out of a table. We used to have Greenberg running the monthly shows in the little hotel room across from where the MCBA would run. And he would run them every month no matter what. So I would go through and I would pick out the hot stuff, the unique stuff, and just enough stuff to put on a table. And I would probably make $400 to $500, which was good for me because that was enough to like pay the rent, pay the hotel. Well, actually, I didn't even have the hotel because I lived in town, but a phone bill or something like that. So, again, I would change my strategy. Now, there were some of the dealers there that I affectionately called the bottom feeders.
Affectionately.
Well, one of them, Mark Murdo, he was the guy who bought all my back issues when I closed Hot Comics St. Paul. So, Mark always brings his stuff. He always has a new collection because he actively is out there buying stuff. He has a bunch of stuff he's liquidating, and then he has his core stock. He has a wall full of bigger books. Another dealer, Greg Hammer, he kind of went down a bit. He had a bunch of his $2 books up top and a bunch of 50 centers down low. And normally I love going through the 50 centers and just picking his stock, but I had limited time. I was actually looking at the clock as I'm going through stuff going, okay, well, I want to stop back and at least talk to Cory for a half hour or so before I had to
thank you for that.
Well, that was fun. And, Hot Comics was there. I kind of picked through their stock. Didn't really look a lot at the toy guys. And even there was that one guy we talked about. I mean, I ran into him. He was talking to one of the other dealers. He was like, oh, when I saw 3 people in line, I just turned around and went back. Premature, maybe not, but, you got to decide what you're going to do with your time. If you're going to hang it out. Kruber and I were never ones to leave early at a con. Occasionally we might, especially if we were like out in Duluth or somewhere far away. But a lot of times we would just kind of hang in there because, we'd do once we got everything in the truck, then we'd go out and get something to eat, and then we'd start to trek home.
Well, and the other thing, to be blunt, you two had each other to talk to.
True. Or Def Leppard to listen to. We did a lot of that.
Oh.
Hey, we like Def Leppard.
I'm sorry.
You should be. Apology accepted.
Now, when I was living down in Illinois, they didn't even have those little conventions, but there were a couple people who weren't really comic shops, but they would set up to sell out of weird places. There was one guy who his parents had this farmhouse, and what he did, he converted their garage into a kind of comic shop. You know how a garage has the door that comes down? They replaced that with an actual wall with a door in it. And then after he did that, he set up tables. And on those tables, he had, the comics bagged, boarded, and priced. And I would, it was on my way when I was going to college in Canton, Illinois, I would drive by it every day. So every few weeks, if I had a little extra money, I'd stop in and buy some back issues. there's those ads again.
Yeah, I just can't let a website sit because it's something I want to talk about. But
and then there was a shop that opened in Canton, Illinois, but it wasn't really. I wouldn't call it a comic shop because he didn't have new comics. He had old comics, and they had tables for Dungeons and Dragons, and they had video games, and he sold soda and candy and chips and stuff. And they stayed open for about 2 years. So, because, hey, you got to have something to do. It's Canton, Illinois. There's nothing to do in Canton, Illinois. Nothing. Well, it's like, you'd go to Galesburg, you could cruise. You go to one McDonald's, and you go through its parking lot, and then you drive up Main Street, and then down Henderson, and then you'd go into the McDonald's, and you turn the other McDonald's on Henderson, you turn around, you cruise back, and, you see people and, if you've ever seen the movie American Graffiti, it was like that, except not as interesting or exciting as fun. But you at least had that.
There are shows like that pop around every so often. There was the one guy who had the Rick's Collectibles, the same spot that I opened up Crazy Comics. He used to do a show at one of the malls nearby. And it was just one of those, not quite strip malls, but if you just walk a straight line, you pretty much see everything. I think it had, it was an Old Country Buffet. It has a breakfast buffet place there that was real big.
Old Country Buffets everywhere.
Yeah. And, he would have people set up. I'd see a couple dealers there occasionally, and how's it going? Not so good. And, he was just there dealing, wheeling.
Hello?
Hello, nice. Hey, maybe it's Butch. Hang on a second. Hello? Yeah, we were.
Hello?
Oh, you want to come by? Oh, I'm sorry, not this week. Yeah, maybe next week. Sorry. Yeah, I'll eat the pizza I made for you. Okay, bye. Okay, I'm back.
That's good.
So, anyways, yeah, there are shows like that. I know Pat and we did a lot of different shows. The worst we did, I think, was when we went to Wisconsin Dells.
Yeah, you've told about that.
I actually did okay because I brought back a ton of toys that eventually made a lot of money. We went down to Kansas City, which was pretty cool. We did the Chicago shows. St. Cloud had a good show for a while. We're always looking to try something new. I know towards the end of Hot Comics St. Paul, I was talking with McDonough, and his mom used to do flea markets, which was something I always wanted to try. And he was like, well, the problem is the flea market guys were always very jealous of their spot. And he's like, but if you go in, my mom will kind of run interference for you. But then we never did get together. And that would be the type of place you'd want to bring cheap stuff. Yeah, you might want to show off some of your expensive stuff. But it's almost like you'd want to be, I don't know, Wynonna Earp would be a perfect example. Because it's property somebody might recognize because of the television show, therefore they may buy it at the con, or I should say flea market, or whatever one of these little mall shows are. For the longest time, there were not these shows like this that would show up at strip malls and that. They're starting to make a comeback, though. I wonder if it's just because you can only do so much on eBay, and I don't know.
I think one of the things that this show could be, if they get some better timing, figure out the location a little better, get some signage, get some publicity out there, it could be kind of a place for artists, kind of like when we went to Dan's, what was that? The Holiday Geek Fest.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's, you pay $3-4, you come in, people are selling their stuff. It doesn't have to be all comics, but it's just kind of a open marketplace for this stuff, and you don't expect a lot. Maybe you get one or two name artists in the area to be a draw, and you pull in, a couple hundred people. I remember when I was in charge of the MCBA, and my last year, because we had been building and building and building. My last year, and it was 96, so we'd already been around for 8 years. My goal was we're going to break 1,000 in attendance because we hadn't broken 1,000 in attendance yet. We'd had Marvel and DC there. They quit coming because we didn't have enough people. The comic market was collapsing, so dealers were coming in just wanting money.
We never could get the Comic Buyer's Guide people to come.
No.
And they were like right next door.
But my whole goal was we get over 1,000 people. So think about the fact that we did 16 shows to build to 1,000 people. It takes a long time to build that name and build that recognition and get people involved and get people going. So I think not locking the doors, probably a good idea. Having some signs, a good idea. Better timing might help too, but it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. You know who it's not hard to say stuff about?
Who's that?
These guys, our sponsors. Yes, here at Solitaire Rose Networks, we have ads. That's right, we have ads. Just like every other podcast. Come on, it's okay. Our first advertiser is our longest-running advertiser, and that's DreamHost.com. DreamHost.com is the best, bar none, web host all over the interwebs. You could go to other web hosts. You could go to the ones that have big ads on TV and everything, and they're not going to give you the service, the dependability, and the reliability of DreamHost. Head on over to DreamHost.com. Use the code CRAYZ, KRAYZ, and get $20 off your first year of web hosting. Another of our sponsors is Dollar Shave Club. Dollar Shave Club has great blades at low prices, and let's face it, you got to shave. Head over to shaved.by/C19DC. Get you some blades. They're wonderful. I use them. I use all of our sponsors. Matter of fact, head on over to crazycomics.com. Over on the right-hand side of the page, you'll see all of our sponsors. Bombas, Grays, Flaviar, Dollar Shave Club, and DreamHost. If you would like to advertise on any of the podcasts in the Solitaire Rose Network, you can. Just email solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, subject advertising. And after we finish with the sponsors, we ask Joe, what's on the eBays?
I'm back at it. I don't even remember what we used to call it, where I'm ripping my collection apart to try to get the stuff I'm going to keep and what stuff I'm going to eventually get rid of, possibly at one of the shows we were just talking about. So I've been running across all sorts of cool things. The coolest stuff will go on eBay, so check it out, KRAYZ. The bad stuff we will sit here and talk about. Well, it's not all bad. I did find a copy of the first issue of George Perez's Wonder Woman, which did not age well.
Really?
Well, it's still on the comic newsprint. And, you get spoiled with this here, you kids and your glossy shit and all that stuff. This, I know when it starts to come out, if it hasn't already, in some type of omnibus, I will definitely be picking up because it was fantastic reading. Even the first issue wasn't too bad in the shape it's in. But, I don't even know what these run for now, but the condition this sucker is, it's bound for the dollar bin. Cory, have you heard of Planet of the Apes?
Once or twice, yeah.
Do you remember... almost forgot it. It is time to ask the Strode.
Uh-oh.
Cory?
Yes?
Tell me about Adventure Comics, the company.
The company?
Yes. They
were part of the big Malibu group. Malibu, before Marvel Bottom, was like all of these different little imprints. And Adventure was kind of their Dungeons and Dragons imprint. All of the comics that they put out were fantasy Dungeons and Dragons type books. And if I remember right, they had a lot of art by Peter Hsu, HSU. And I don't want to malign him, but there was a weird creepiness to his art. Where the women were drawn as if they were incredibly sexy, voluptuous 12-year-olds.
Speaking of creepy art, That brings us to 3 of the titles grouped under one licensee.
You're opening something.
Yes. Planet of the Apes. I found a couple different things. First of all, I have, soon to be on eBay, the Planet of the Apes Alien Nation crossover, which I don't know why I bought because I don't really care about Alien Nation. Alien Nation was a TV show where the aliens landed and one of the protagonists was an alien. It was like a cop show. But I have 3 of the Planet of the Apes titles. And what was interesting is when they got a hold of the title, they said, we're going to explain why humans can't talk by the time we see Planet of the Apes. They were looking to fill in the gap in between the Conquest for Planet of the Apes. No, it was a Battle Planet of the Apes was the last one, to the actual Planet of the Apes movie. Because at the end of the one, everybody's in peace. Next one, the humans are idiots. They did this in a couple different ways. I read Planet of the Apes, and this one was actually kind of interesting. It was issue 6, and you're actually, from the viewpoint of a person an ape moving into Ape City. And this must take place a number of years after the end of the movie series, but long before the beginning of the Planet of the Apes movie, because it's still knowledge that the apes took over the world from the humans, and that there is human stuff out there, and they're saying it's not something that they like to talk about, So, and I don't even recall seeing a human talk in that one. Then there was another one, a miniseries called Ape City. And as I rip this bad boy open, let's see if I could remember where this happened. This actually kind of takes place in Europe. A spaceship of humans comes down because they realize that Taylor's mission failed, and so they are now coming forward to try to prevent the planet to be taken over by apes. Well, unfortunately, they way miss where they were supposed to land, around the area of the movies, end up in Eastern Europe, where their technology is a little bit higher, and, humans don't talk, but, they got rifles, they've got guns, they've got electricity, they have the American Express card. So I thought that was kind of interesting, a different take on that in a different time. And then we go back to the Forbidden Zone, which was another miniseries done by them, where they talk. Where did this take place? I think this takes place in a different ape city. Humans can talk. They're still living together peacefully, and the radiation zone hasn't spread, although it's spreading. So I thought it was interesting. You got 3 different series, 3 different areas of the mythos. And then, of course, I remember how excited it would be to watch this. And then, of course, in the first issue of whatever series, it was kind of like, oh, the humans lost their speech because of a virus. Oh, well, that's the end of that. But if you're looking for some good stories, although, as Cory said, some creepy art, I mean, when you see, ape women running around in bikinis, no, these are all probably quarter-worthy stuff. And like I said, these will probably not be on eBay, but you can find them cheap. So Adventure had just tons of these Planet of the Apes comics, and I forget who had the license after. I think I could look that up, but they lasted quite some time until Malibu, I think, decided to go more with the superhero range. And the final
I
item...
know that, didn't Dark Horse do some Planet of the Apes comics when the Tim Burton movie came out?
That's probably when the license transferred from them. Cory, Matt Cecil?
Why, yes, I do. He worked at Schindler's.
Tell me about Ant-Boy.
Ant-Boy was another one of his mini-comics. He did tons of mini-comics in the 80s. I guess they're still available, but you don't hear about him anymore. He was kind of the leader in the whole mini-comics movement of the 80s, to the point where he actually did an issue of Zot, Zot 10.5 with Scott McCloud. And then Scott McCloud would put Matt Feasel art in issues of Zot. So Ant-Boy is probably still available over on his website.
Now, do you know about Steel Dragon Press?
Yes, that is was a local publishing company. It was Will Shetterly. And the biggest book they did was Captain Confederacy, which was a alternate world series where it was set in a United States that the Confederacy had won.
Which was a brilliant idea, but it didn't pan out too well. Ant-Boy was one of 2 issues actually published by Steel Dragon Press in comic book form. And it contained 1 news stories, and then it reprinted a lot of the stuff from Captain Confederacy and Escape to the Stars and things like that. So if you're digging through that there quarter box, you can find these because none of these really have any value. But that was the fun part about digging through, just finding all these old titles. A lot of it in the past podcasts we talked about where it would be like just things I was wading through my collection trying to get it alphabetized. Well, I'm back on that kick. I'm trying to get everything going. The goal, as you long-term listeners know, was I was actually going to go to FallCon this year and do like my partner Gruber, have a final sale. Final sale. Never happened. So what's happening now is as I'm digging through the box, I kind of have it listed in 3 parts. Number 1, what's going on eBay. And again, they're not all collector items, like the aforementioned Booster Gold number 1. Some of it's just, hey, I happen to have a run of Alien Planet of the Apes. I'll price it cheap, and of course, I always take best offers into consideration. And of course, for you, our esteemed listeners, if you do see something you like and want to buy it, KRAYZ, send me a quick note at crazycomics@gmail.com or through eBay's system, which they prefer. And I'll probably give you a bonus. Might be one of these here cheapo comics if you really want Ant-Boy. Just, send me it. I'll probably send it to you for free. And then, of course, there are piles of stuff that I just haven't read yet. And, of course, as I go through it, it might be revisiting this here theme as the future goes on.
Well, now that we've completed that, it's time for my favorite part of the show. No, not the end.
Oh.
Freaking and geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
You.
Oh, Christ, what did I do now?
You were just so morose after the con. I think it was...
I was morose before the con.
Yeah, but I think, you seem so upbeat. I mean, I got to give you kudos, because you were entertaining as hell watching you. But, it was just... I think we damaged your psyche here, huh? Just having you wax on for 6 hours solo.
Can I be blunt?
I've never known you not to be.
Oh, yes. There are times.
Oh, yes.
Yes, there are times when I hide. At the convention, first when I got there, it was not what I expected. I mean, they didn't have any setup at all. They had no place for me to set up. They didn't. It was upsetting, and I was already tired. And Butch had said that he would probably be there to help out. And I had some topics, but what I was going to do is people came by, I was going to talk to them. And only like 2 or 3 people came by to talk. And after about me talking for 2 hours, I was just burned out. When I do a solo podcast, I have my notes, I have my setup, I do this. I'm planning to talk for an hour. And then I'm not going to get into what's been going on the last few weeks, but there have been a lot of things in my personal life that have kind of given me a gut punch. And normally I try to be on the happy bus. Joe will even call me a goody two-shoes and stuff. I don't
that's
feel
only
like
because I've seen your goody two-shoes.
I don't feel like a goody two-shoes. I feel like the phrase I use is that we all have an emotional checkbook. And we do things that give us deposits, and then we do things where we're making payments. And lately it feels like all I have done has been making payments. I haven't gotten any deposits. So eventually you just get kind of...
And to tell you how bad Cory felt, I said, let's go geeking the Sunday afterwards. And he said, no.
I didn't want to be around anybody. I didn't talk to anybody.
So your job, dear listeners, is to send Cory some positive affirmation. That's what I'm freaking on. Cory, what are you freaking on? Oh, by the way, did I tell you I'm going to be on vacation next week?
Yes,
okay.
And we have your replacement set.
Good. Because I know we have the dreaded deadline doom, and I don't want to see another fill-in episode.
Not as close together.
No.
I have not gotten my box day box yet.
Okay, there goes my geeking.
And I've been working a lot at the group home, so I got some really huge checks, but I've also not been as attendant to detail as I should be. So when I was setting up to pay bills on Friday after I got that check, rather than on 2 of the 3 credit cards that I own, it's just making, I don't make the minimum payment. I make about 3 times the minimum payment so that I'm paying it off. I accidentally on both of them clicked pay all.
Oh!
Now, the good thing is the check I got from the group home was big enough that I covered it and didn't even have a problem. But it was, well, I thought I would have this much money in my account, and now I only have this much. Well, the good thing is now 2 of the 3 credit cards are paid off.
Woohoo! Geek time!
So there's that, and so there's that.
Cool.
Joe, what are you geeking on?
Oh, this is going to be good because I've had a lot of time to do a lot of reading. First off, in no particular order, I read the autobiography of James T. Kirk, the story of Starfleet's greatest captain, edited by David A. Goodman, who apparently is the editor of Memory Alpha. If you're a Star Trek fan, this was actually kind of fun. It was almost like you're just sitting down reading one of these autobiographies that people want to do. Hardcover came out a lot, but I've decided I have to continue with my, how do they call it, middle-class poverty wages, where I have to wait for everything to come out into a how do you call it, paperback book. Although I didn't for this one, which I gotta, where'd it go? Oh, way over here. Here it is. I don't recall if I talked about this one on our last podcast, but I'm going to geek on it again because I just loved it. We're talking about Booker T, My Rise to Wrestling Royalty by WWE Hall of Famer Booker T. Huffman, who is 5 times WCW Heavyweight Champion and the proud owner of the Spinneroonie, the most electrifying, well, no longer electrifying move in wrestling history because he really effed up himself last time he tried it and he's not doing it anymore. So I like wrestling books. I was explaining to my daughter earlier today because we were running through the mall and she found me looking at wrestling books. And there's 2 of them out that I haven't picked up yet. One by Pat Patterson and one by Brian Daniels. And of the 2, I think the Pat Patterson looks to be more interesting. And I was explaining to Dana, or Holly, the concept of kayfabe, because she'd never heard it. And I said, you probably wouldn't, because you said, remember back when you believed wrestling was as it was presented. I don't want to say fake, because there's no way these guys are going to do those physical moves and be fake, but it's predetermined, it's scripted. And she said yes. And so a lot of times some of the earlier pro wrestlers would write these books still doing kayfabe. And I find that annoying, especially when they do it now. There are some old school guys who still do that because it's not necessary. I mean, we want to know more about the behind the scenes things. You don't have to do a what do they call it, trash book or reveal all, but you don't have to play kayfabe, and Booker T doesn't. And I'm excited about Pat Patterson's book because, I mean, that's a guy who's got real history, being a wrestler and being around WWE and WWF. And I'm excited. Hopefully I'll pick his book up. Meantime, I've got plenty more to read. Out of Box Day, I talked about the Kirk biography. I've got the new Teen Titans Volume 5. This is the classic stuff from Marv Wolfman, George Perez. And this is probably how I'm going to be picking it up. Again, if you find the old issues, they'll suffer like the Wonder Woman book did, where the newsprint just doesn't hold up. But now you've got better pages, better printing, and the color actually holds up. It's a joy to read. Of course, I don't know when issue 6 is coming out, but I'll be combing the previews for it. Let's see. I picked up Star Trek New Vision Special of The Cage, which is the John Byrne Photoshop Star Trek stuff. It's not original. He's basically just doing the Cage. He does add in some of the stuff that's cut, if you ever watch the difference between the Menagerie and the Cage. Not a totally satisfying experience because it is just a comic photo of the Cage. But it was still fun just to see some of the different things. He doesn't even do a decent shot of the Orion slave woman. What's up with that? I finally read The Secret Service Kingsmen by Mark Miller, Dave Gibbons, and Matthew Vaughn. This, of course, is from the series The Secret Service. And I got to say, I watched the movie first, so I was really geeking when I got this. I actually ended up getting the graphic novel and the 6 issue series by mistake off eBay because I ended up winning both auctions. And I've got the miniseries up on eBay if you're interested, but the Kingsman book itself I read. It's a lot of fun. You can see what they took out of it for the movie. I wish I'd have read this first because I don't think it compares to the movie. I think the movie does a better job because, you know, it's motion, whereas a lot of things in here are implied motion. Worth picking up, worth reading. Had a lot of fun doing it. From the Spring Con, I picked up a copy of Wolverine and the Black Cat Claws 2, which I have never read. And after reading it, I don't think I read the first series. This is the one that Palmiotti wrote, and Gray and Linsner, of course, did most of the art. And I actually had him autograph it while I was at the Spring Con last. But fun little series. He gets to go in the future, visit Kill Raven. They also reprint the Kill Raven one-shot that he did. And why Marvel's never picked up him to just continue with the character, I don't know. But they really should because it was a fun series. First thing out of the box, I had to read Civil War 2, 3 and 4. I had 2 waiting, and then 3 and 4. And, of course, it ends on the type of ending that old comic books do so well, and I'm not going to spoil it in case somebody hasn't read it yet. Knights of the Dinner Table, I always read first. And then, of course, picked up Kaiju Max Season 2. That's Xander Cannon's book, dealing with giant monsters and robots. It's highly recommended. We've talked about it in the past. Read the first issue of ROM. This is from IDW, and I picked up the photo toy cover. And I wasn't really sold. I'm still not sold on the ROM. I mean, I guess I hold the original series too near and dear to my heart. But it is kind of cool. And I suppose, Cory, throw up a spoiler warning here because I've got to talk about it. It ends up with G.I. Joe is going to go after Rom. And that's at the end of the first issue. And what it is, it's actually going into a big crossover called the, what you going to call it, the Hasbro universe, where IDW is taking all the Hasbro guys, and we're talking Rom, G.I. Joe, Voltron, Mask, and Transformers. And they're doing a big crossover starting next month, which is kind of tough for if you're trying to do an individual issue, but if you're really into the crossover, and I wasn't at first, but then the very first panel of the 4-issue pages got me. Cory, do you know the G.I. Joe characters from the 70s?
No, I do not know the characters. I know the Big Jim characters because Jack Kirby drew them.
See, the guy just got trivia in his head. Well, this was after the G.I. Joe guys dropped their soldier thing and they went into their adventure mode. So the very first panel has the yellow adventure vehicle that they were known for driving around in. You have the classic G.I. Joe guy that's got the beard. Behind him, of course, the black guy without the beard. Behind him, the redheaded guy who just had the mustache. Behind him, Bullet Man. Behind him, Mike Power, the Atomic Man. These were the G.I. Joes I grew up with. And they do a little thing where he goes, I had to hang up our gear because they gave me a desk job. I had to shave, all to make way for General Hawk and his secret team. With 2 panels, they sold me this entire crossover because they've tied into the past that I grew up with, my childhood, and they're going forward with this. So for me, I'm kind of looking forward to the crossover. I know it goes into all the different books. So if you're reading G.I. Joe, there's going to be a G.I. Joe book. There's going to be a ROM book, et cetera, et cetera. I'm hoping they do like Marvel does and not have everything tied together. So that way I can just enjoy the crossover itself. I've got them all on order. So whether I like them or not is irrelevant because I'm going to go get them. Speaking of ordering things, I have discovered something interesting when I'm going through previews. And I imagine we'll talk about it more when Cory finally gets his. I seem to be recreating books that I read in my golden age that I just don't have anymore. I've got Teen Titans. I look over on my shelf. I've got John Byrne's Fantastic Four 1 and 2. I got Uncanny X-Men 1, waiting for Marvel to do number 2. Have you seen what people want for those things?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. I'll wait for a reprint. But even
that's the thing about the omnibuses.
Omnibuy?
Stores should be ordering more of them because what it is, yes, they are a slow seller. But they are a perennial seller. And once they sell out, you've got people who still want them. It's $100. It's $125. It's not an impulse item. It's something you save up for. And all of the ones I bought, I've actually either gotten dirt cheap from a bottom-feeding dealer, from DCB Service, or from online retailers blowing them out. And the funny thing is, after the online retailers blow them out, once they're sold out from those guys, within about 3-4 months, you'll go to eBay, you'll go to half.com, you'll go to Amazon. They're going for 2 and 3 times cover.
Well, sometimes, I told my story about selling the Eternals omnibus.
Yeah, how much did that go for?
Well, I sold mine for about $400, but they were asking $1,200 to $2,000 on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's almost like the Essentials, too. You almost want to just buy one, sit on it, and if it goes up, sell it. I want them because I'm not going to go back and recreate these things. I'm trying to sell off my collection, but I also want to hang on to things that I know I'm going to read or reread again. Consequently, in this month's previews, I've got, for graphic novels, Superman Golden Age Volume 2. I was ranting on and on when I read Volume 1 a couple months ago. Alpha Flight Omnibus. I'm going to pick that up. And another collection that I know I don't have, I know I've had, the complete collection Captain Marvel.
Oh, yeah, the complete Jim Starlin Captain Marvel.
And it's like I'm going back and I'm just trying to, I want to piece together the comics and things that I actually enjoy, things that I'll reread over and over. For DC, it could be an Absolute. It could be in case like Puma Blues. He had a big omnibus that came out and had everything in it. I'm loving it. I'm also finding that I'm trying to cut back on the month-to-month comics, but boy, there's just a lot of cool stuff coming out. And even this month, I've had to take a cut to kind of DC, that I'm not buying the entire Rebirth line. I'm just going to have to stick with the ones that I know I'm going to enjoy and might reread down the road instead of, 2-3 years from now. Well, Cory, I'm starting to sell those Rebirth comics that I picked up here in 2016 on this here eBay thing. So, just a lot of fun, a lot of reading, and, I'm digging deeper and deeper into my vast accumulation of crap and finding things that I just never read. So, not to mention when I go on vacation, omnibus are fun to bring. And you can kill, like, big spiders when they slip into your tent and things like that. Cory, what are you geeking on? What got you upbeat?
Well, there was one person who came over and talked to me at the convention. One.
Well, hey, I came over.
Artist.
I tried to surprise you.
You did. One of the artists, Lance Ward, who is a local artist who does kind of underground work. And you can actually go see his stuff at tatertotdiaperman.wordpress.com.
Say that one more time.
tatertotdiaperman at wordpress.com.
One more time. I could listen to you say that all day.
tatertotdiaperman at .wordpress.com.
Just I want to make sure people get that website right.
And it'll be in the show notes. But Lance came over and talked for a while about the fact that he got picked up for the Best American Comics of 2016, which is coming out on October 4th. And last year he had put out a graphic novel, and he'd sent it to the Best American Comics for consideration. And in the past, he's had his books listed as a notable book, which, believe it or not, actually helped sales for a lot of really indie artists. But he was upset and kind of depressed that it didn't get picked for 2015. He was kind of counting on that, and he stepped away from comics and was trying to find other work. And then this year, the Best American Comics is being edited by Roz Chast, who's best known as a cartoonist in The New Yorker. And they contacted him to let him know that they didn't want to just list it as a notable book. They wanted to buy 25 pages of it and run it in this anthology, which is a huge, huge get for any cartoonist. Some of the other cartoonists who are in this book are Linda Berry, Joe Sacco, Adrian Tomei, Chris Ware, Julia Wartz. This is a big deal for sort of indie art comics. And Lance is a great guy. I've talked to him at the last two conventions. Like I said, at this convention, he was the only artist who came over and talked to me. He's been inviting me to a poker game that he runs that I'd never have time to go to. But it was wonderful. It was one of the bright spots of the convention. And could not be happier. It's always good when a local guy who's just been putting in the work hits it big and does well. Let's see, what else? Joe, when was the last time that I have been drunk? Do you know?
I don't actually follow your coming and goings that often.
2009.
Oh, you are overdue, son.
Not anymore. While I was mixing the Comic Crap podcast, I had the entire day off from work. However, they had spent the day before and that day calling and asking if I could come into work. And I did not want to come into work. So you know how I kept them from bringing me into work?
Well, if any indication of my text feed, you kept drinking.
I started by having my Diet Coke, and I had a nice little bottle of Maker's Mark bourbon, and I poured a shot in and started to feel a little happy. So I decided, you know what, I've got these Leinenkugel berry Weisses, and I had about 6 of them. And I was also drinking the Diet Coke and bourbon. And no, it was not. I was not a happy drunk for a lot of it, but I believe I was entertaining. And people have offered in the past to kind of be my babysitter if I were to go out and be drunk, but I decided I would just do it at home alone, and I gave Sharon my password to my Facebook and said, if I post anything embarrassing, please go ahead and remove it. And she reported the next day that there was nothing embarrassing. Okay, Joe, what was embarrassing?
I'm not saying nothing. I'm sore because you didn't want to go geeking.
I did not want to talk to people.
You don't have to talk when you geek. Matter of
fact.
fact,
You do, because we would have been in a car.
For most of the matter, we don't even talk when we're in the store because you're busy digging one area and I'm busy digging somewhere else.
Yeah, but when we're in the vehicles.
Excuses. That's why I would have hid the camera. I mean, the microphone.
Boy, it's like we're back to basics. Your internet's dropping all the time.
No. That wasn't internet. I'm tired of you bad-mouthing my internet.
I badmouth everything. That's what I'm known for now.
Badmouth what's true. In this case, it wasn't the internet.
What was it?
I told you, it was Skype. It just froze everything. I had to reboot. I've never had a program.
Joe, you may have told me, but you didn't tell the listeners.
Oh, who cares? You'll edit out this anyways.
No, I'm keeping this in.
Yeah, sure, anything to make it. You think I'm back in Alaska?
It sure feels like it.
I gotta, just kind of, and then I just, and another. And let me tell you, Strode, the next time.
Well, believe it or not, kids.
That's all I got to say about that.
Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for an hour and a half.
I don't think we don't appreciate it.
And, as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
Oh, what? After my whole computer crashes, I'm supposed to give a snappy quote? Screw that. Hit the music.